Right. This is the, maybe I'll repeat the date. Since we just started recording. It's Monday, January the 10th at 8 a.m. This is the Legislative Task Force Subcommittee on Data meeting today. If we could please take roll call, Mr. Vogel.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Professor Kammer.
Present.
Ms. Matson.
Here.
Ms. Robertus.
Present.
Ms. Williamson. Well, Chair Williamson.
Present.
All right, Madam Chair, a quorum is present.
All right, fantastic. If anyone has not received the agenda, please let us know as we move forward on the next point of the agenda in regards to our minutes, and just to see if there was any discussion, any question, any clarification that needed to be made, to be adapted.
I'm not sure if it's just on my end, but I'm having a hard time hearing.
You're having a hard time hearing me, or just okay?
Yeah.
Probably because of I have you all on hands free. So that's going to change here momentarily. Is this a little bit better?
Yeah, whatever you just did, I certainly can hear better now. Yes.
Okay. All right. My apologies for that. So I was just inquiring if anyone had any questions or corrections or any discussion regarding the minutes that we have. And if not, we can move to go forward with the minutes if there's no further discussion. All right, Mr. Vogel, we can go forward with the minutes. Excuse me.
Certainly, Madam Chair.
All right. Let's see our next agenda item. Mr. Vogel, if you could please remind me of our next agenda item.
Certainly, Madam Chair. So the next agenda item is pretty general. It's discussion of DHS provided data and other data topics. So specifically, I think you and the members were interested in discussing the data set that DHS provided to us last week, which is essentially a breakdown of the years 2018 and 2019 for background studies and disqualifications by racial categories, and then it delves into specific provider types with those categories. But then also this agenda item can cover any other discussion you and the members want to have.
Absolutely. Yes, we can go ahead and get started with the discussion in regards to the data. First, I want to just make sure everyone was able to receive the data. We do understand there's some points on there that aren't for public viewing or public knowledge, but we do want to make sure everyone was able to receive the data. All right. Was there any initial questions in regards to what we've received as we begin the discussion on what we were able to see here and to take a deeper dive? All right, Mr. Vogel, if we can go forth and just have a deeper discussion in regards to what we're seeing here.
Certainly, Madam Chair. And I suppose not to put the DHS members on the spot, but I should note we also do have several DHS employees in attendance who have offered to answer questions about this data, although they don't have a formal presentation prepared.
Right. Since they don't have formal presentation prepared, do you mind more so just seeing who wants to, if there's any additional information or explanation that any of the DHS personnel would like to go forth, and if you could kind of just lead this portion, that would be much appreciated.
Certainly, Madam Chair. So would you like me to talk through the data that I've seen?
Please.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you, Madam Chair and members. And I should note I'm not displaying this this data on my screen simply because of potential data privacy concerns. DHS was very helpful in breaking it down ultimately in their last tables by specific provider type, or sorry, excuse me, by specific program of the several dozen programs that that require these background studies. So that sort of deep dive into the data resulted in some categories having single-digit numbers of people in that data, which is way too identifiable. So that's just why I'm not displaying this on my screen right now. But speaking in general terms of the data here, so we have the years 2018 and 2019 broken down by racial categories. And DHS, please jump in if I'm misinterpreting something here. Just correct me, please. I think these are racial categories that are used by the FBI for their criminal background check database. So that's what DHS was able to pull, because that's the data and those are the categories that they had. But so looking at the years 2018 and 2019, we have a grand total of 184,700 and 210,600 for those 2 years, total background studies conducted. And that doesn't necessarily mean individual people. One individual, for example, could have had multiple background studies in those years, but we're looking at 180 to 210,000 background studies conducted by DHS each year. And then in terms of disqualifications in those years, it looks like 5,300 and 8,400 applications were disqualified in 2018, 2019. Excuse me, persons were disqualified in those years. Now, in terms of racial breakdown, sorry. So if you're walking through this data set with me, Table 3 is in fact a distinct count of persons in those years. So that's 171,000 and 186,000 respectively. So looking at these data sets by racial breakdown, then we see, for example, 115,000 white applicants in the year 2018, 30,600 African American applicants, 10,700 Asian or Pacific Islander, 2,300 Native American, and 12,000 unknown or other. And then in terms of disqualifications that year, we have 2,600 applicants who were white disqualified, 1,700 African American applicants disqualified, 122 Asian or Pacific Islander applicants disqualified, 294 Native American applicants disqualified, and then 434 unknown or other applicants disqualified, along with 30 none provided, which I would assume that's none provided in the data set. So that's a lot of numbers. Looking at this data set, what I would want to do as I crunch it for my own understanding is get a sense of what the trend lines over time are. Obviously, the total number of cases being considered increased from year to year. But for example, what percentage of how have percentages of African American cases considered versus disqualified changed? One thing that occurs to me that would be interesting to do also is to compare this data set to census data breaking down Minnesota by racial categories. Those wouldn't necessarily be quite the same racial categories that the census uses as the FBI, but that might give us a sense of how this data compares to Minnesota's population as a whole. Now, that being said, I'm sort of speaking off the top of my head for what I'd want to do with this. I haven't actually had a chance to do any of this analysis with this, so I apologize. But at this point, what I can basically do is read you through what I'm seeing, not give you these numbers that I'd want to calculate. But as a general overview, then that gives us a sense of I think of the categories that DHS is providing. They're providing these very specific numbers for this change over time between 2018 and 2019. And then just to walk you through the other tables, we have table 5 here, which breaks using those same categories and those same years, it breaks the data, the data down further into regulatory agencies that had a study or had a disqualification. The Department of Corrections, of Health, of Human Services, et cetera. And then further on in Table 8, we get a breakdown from within those regulatory agencies of the specific programs that had a background study or had a determination or had a disqualification. Again, in those years and with those racial categories. So I think there's a lot here that DHS has given us or given the subcommittee to analyze. Yeah, I'd definitely say this is looking at this very specific table here. I'd say this is definitely data disaggregated by race. I'm gonna step back now, and do any of the members have any questions or want me to delve into anything?
This is Roy Kammer. Just a quick clarifying question. When a applicant is of more than one race, are they allowed to choose more than one race, or they have to choose the one that best applies, or they choose other? Do you know what? Can you clarify what they're instructed to do? Does anybody know? Certainly.
And if members from DHS don't mind, I'm going to step back and let them answer that, actually.
Good morning, Ari Didion, Legislative Liaison for Operations at DHS. I believe people are able to choose more than one category, but again, I'm not the data expert, so I'd definitely be able to take that one back to our folks. We do have some folks monitoring this morning, and so we can get back to you right after this subcommittee meeting this morning on that.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it. And that's a great question. Just looking here. I wonder, let me see, I'm still getting to know the different positions here. So I see we have Mr. Zempel here, and then Ari, and let's see, was there anyone else from DHS that I am not seeing, Mr.?
Madam Chair, she's unmuting herself, but Emily Kassane is also here from DHS. I should note Mr. Zempel, I don't want to speak for him, but this is his first day back from vacation, so he may not necessarily want to step into to a role, to the primary role here, but
Yes.
I leave that up to them.
Yes, welcome back, Mr. Zempel. Hope you had a great time off. So I would like to know if those of you from DHS, if you can kind of just weigh in regards to this data that we've received, and just kind of give us a brief overview or summary of what this is.
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair. This is Chris Zempel with DHS, and it's good to be back. Happy New Year, everybody. It is my understanding that we do not have the staff who pulled this data together on the task force meeting this morning. And so we are here observing and willing to take any questions this subcommittee has on the data back to our team at DHS to provide detailed answers to this committee, like the question that was just asked before this. So we do not have a presentation prepared this morning or additional remarks regarding the data, but happy to take questions back or comments back.
Thank you. So in regards to the data request, the written data request that was submitted, is it possible to give us an update on other data that's being worked on and some timeframes that we can anticipate receiving them as well?
Yeah, and so as was mentioned, today is my first day back. This is an 8 a.m. meeting. I do have a meeting on my calendar, looks like for tomorrow, with our team to discuss the data requests, where they're at, what we're working on. And so that is something we can also follow up with this subcommittee after we're able to get our collective thoughts together tomorrow. So if we can wait till then, we'll be happy to send an email to this group at that time.
And I'll just add to what Chris said, that we are actively pulling a couple other sets of data that the task force has asked for. Right now, we are pulling data on disqualification by crime and conduct types and the type of determination. That's one request we're actively working on. And then the other request that we're actively working on but don't have yet is results of requests for reconsideration and administrative appeals of disqualification decisions. And, so those are kind of the main data requests we're working on. But like Mr. Zempel said, we'll be meeting internally this week. And then, Madam Chair, as you know, you and Mr. Zempel will have a meeting later this week as well to kind of discuss data requests. So, but that's what we've got in the works at the moment.
Much appreciated. Member Maston, you seem as though you may have some questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had another data point for discussion at some point in time. We talked a lot about outcomes, but just got to thinking that perhaps we needed some data regarding process as far as number of days from point of submission to receiving the study, perhaps by program. And maybe there are other process questions that we need, but just coming from an employer perspective, I know that's something that our members are quite interested in, is overall processing time. So for what it's worth, if there's any other discussion on process versus outcome and data needed there.
DHS, is that something that, does that make sense in regards to the request?
Yeah, good morning, Madam Chair. So as with all data, please submit in writing to Mr. Vogel any data you would like us to pull, and we would respond to that. That's just the easiest way for us to ensure that we are being responsive, that we're being held accountable, and that we get you the data that you need.
All right, fantastic. And Mr. Vogel does have the specific request, so we can get that submitted. Mr. Vogel, how soon can you have that?
Madam Chair, I can have a document worked up and ready to send over to send it to the members for their review later today. I've got another subcommittee meeting that later this morning that may get in the way of getting that done immediately. But I should have that for your review by this afternoon. And if it looks good to you, I can send it over to DHS. I should also note that Ms. Roberta's hand is up.
Oh, thank you for that. Ms. Roberta's, please.
Good morning. I just have a clarifying question. So I know we talked about that this is not public data. What is our ability to share with a larger group? And how do we do that when we go back to report back within the confines of what you've indicated is not public? And then I think the most important for me particularly with the data set that we do have access to, which is awesome. Thank you so much, is getting some of those percentage points worked out. And then in stressing the importance of what Will noted, that we need to take Minnesota census in. So even like brief glance at this, right, when we look at disqualifying, you know, it's very evident that there's likely to be a heavy disparity with African Americans. Like I can see that just pretty quickly, but would like to look at that a little bit further.
Thank you so much, Member Robertus. And I do want to, because we can prepare to get ready to adjourn here soon, because I know one of our members needs to leave about 8:30. So I do want to ask Member Kramer, welcome officially, and just want to see if you had any additional comments or.
Can I get it? Does DHS have an answer to my question?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I can respond to that.
Please.
So we're actually, unfortunately, just much like Mr. Zumpel was out, as we were preparing this data, we had some folks from our legal team who were out towards the end of last week. So we're just wanting to make sure that we are doing our due diligence on data privacy. You might actually be able to share this data that we provided publicly on the task force website, et cetera. We just want to make sure that we've discussed with the appropriate folks. So basically what we'll get is either an answer from us that is like, this is okay to share because it doesn't point to the source data, or we'll provide a version of the document with the smaller numbers basically not reflected on there. Because we just have to be careful when there are fewer than 10 people in a category, because once we've broken this down by race, you know, if we have 1 or 2 people, that can make those individuals identifiable. We think we might actually be okay after some discussion here, but we just wanted to make sure before it got posted publicly that we were, you know, double checking and protecting the privacy of our background study subjects. But we are actively discussing that. Folks are back in the office today. So again, we should be able to get back to you either with a revised document or an okay to post answer shortly.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do see that there's a onesies and twosies there. So I appreciate that thoughtfulness too.
Absolutely. Great point to raise, Member Robertus. All right. And then Member Kramer, or excuse me, Kammer. I keep adding the R. I apologize for that. Was there any additional feedback that you had?
No, I was just mostly curious about how people identify. So I appreciate DHS's willingness to get us an answer on that. And I'll be honest, I was just throwing the numbers into a spreadsheet to calculate percentages because I was curious. So thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if there is no further, thank you so much, DHS, for providing this data to us, especially just considering with the numbers, the employee numbers and network issues and other barriers that seem, maybe not barriers, but issues that had come up. So thank you for providing this to us so that we can really just dive in. Also, we look forward for the additional data to come. We'll send the additional points or requests for data as well. And then I know we needed to discuss, we have a meeting scheduled for next Monday. So want to see about, considering with that being a holiday for Dr. Martin Luther King, want to see what the members, want the members to weigh in on regards to us scheduling our next meeting for that following Tuesday, which will be the, my calendar here. So
the 18th, Madam Chair.
Yes. So So for Tuesday, the 18th, and I do want to just acknowledge, I know with Member Robertus that 8 to 8:30 time frame is typically open, and then 8:30 you have another meeting going. Unless anyone has a different suggestion, I say we go forward with the same time frame. And if we kind of know ahead of time that we're going to need more than 30 minutes, that we can look to schedule a meeting at a later time so that we all can be present with that additional time. But for this meeting, this next meeting, looking to see on the that Tuesday, unless someone else has a different suggestion.
Madam Chair, is there any way that we could do it at 10 a.m. on that Tuesday?
Check my...
I would be unavailable because I have a course schedule that I teach from 9:30 to 10:45 on Tuesday mornings.
What if we look at 11?
Madam Chair, I can't do 11. I can either do, I can make 8 a.m. work if I have to.
Any other weigh in on the next meeting? I know that 8 a.m. is somewhat a little awkward, but I just know that with all that we all do, it has a better chance at us being able to make it work. Well, if there's no additional weigh-in, then I don't think we need to vote on having our next scheduled meeting to be on the 18th at 8 a.m. We'll schedule it for 8 to 9. Okay. All right, so we got that. Thank you so much, members, for that. And DHS, just if you all can, just want to give you an opportunity that most likely will work for a representative to be present on next Tuesday.
Madam Chair, we'll have somebody available at that time.
All right, thank you so much. Just wanted to give you the opportunity to weigh in since you're here. Okay, all right, and then just to be really clear before we leave, and I know, let me see. Member Robertus has left already. Okay, I just want to be really clear. So for this next meeting, Mr. Vogel, if you could please just give us kind of like a snapshot of what is expected at this next meeting.
Certainly, Madam Chair. And so obviously that depends pretty much on what you and the members are interested in doing. But as a suggestion, we'll have a week to look over this data set. And I can essentially do what Professor Kammer's doing and, punch this into an Excel sheet and get some percentages going there. Compare this to census data for 2020, which won't be perfect because it won't be the same categories precisely and it won't be the same year, but give a rough sense of how, for example, the number of African American applicants and disqualifications compared to the state or Asian applicants, et cetera. So I can crunch this data a little bit if you'd be interested in discussing that. And then that will be the Tuesday, after the full task force meeting that we have coming up on Friday. So as another suggestion, then you're having that meeting with Chair Geffen, Vice Chair Evans, and Chair Dawson to discuss that full task force meeting. So the data meeting after the full task force meeting, I might suggest whatever feedback you get from the full task force might be something that you and the members might want to discuss. But those are just some suggestions, and obviously, as I work up an agenda for next week, just let me know what you want to do, and I can incorporate that into the agenda.
Fantastic.
Would it be appropriate to share some percentages based on those top tables, the high level numbers, Will?
Please, Mr. Great.
Yeah.
Please, Mr.
So
Kramer.
is it okay to share my screen since we're not in the small identifiable numbers?
It seems if we're not in those identifiable numbers that we would not, that you could share, we wouldn't be going against data privacy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, again, this is just really high number, but I just took those numbers from the top boxes where we have the determinations and the disqualifications, just to kind of look at percentages here. So in columns C and D, we can take a look at total number of determinations in 2018, and you can see the total percentage of the total by race here. What I did then is I took a look at the disqualifications versus the total number of disqualifications just to see if there's much difference here. So you can see that for African Americans, they comprise 17.8% of the total determinations made, yet they comprise almost 33% of the total disqualifications for that year. For Asian Pacific Islanders, 6.3% of the total determinations made, 2.3% of the disqualifications. Native Americans, 1.4% of the total determinations, yet 5.5% of the total disqualifications. None provided, relatively low there. The unknown other, you can see not a lot of difference there. For whites, 67% of the total determinations made and 50% of the total disqualifications. Looking at 2019, when we take a look at the percents of total determinations made, African Americans, 18.54%, and we see a fairly large difference here of 34.23% of the total disqualifications made. Asian Pacific Islanders, 6% of total determinations, 2.3% of total disqualifications. Native Americans, 1.39% of the total determinations, 5.2% of the total disqualifications. Moving on down, unknown, relatively similar than white, 66% of the total determinations and 47% of the total disqualifications. So just threw it together quick in case anyone was curious about percentages, what they look like. So. I'll leave that up for just a second, but Will, I can forward this to you if it's helpful to you in any way.
There we go. Yeah, I'd certainly appreciate that, Professor Kammer. Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, man, hate to be right, right? But the data, the numbers don't lie. That's why data is so important. So, all right. Okay. So what we can move to adjourn if there were no further discussion or any additional questions. I just want to make that give opportunity for that, and if not, we can definitely move to adjourn. Those figures just kind of thrown me. Yes. So without further ado, all minds are clear, and no objection to adjourning. We can move to adjourn. Thank you all so much for your participation.